everybody, happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you are doing, you are having an amazing Sunday. Welcome to my greenhouse. Things are finally starting to grow. My tomatoes took forever to germinate. I still don't have a huge number of tomato plants that have germinated, and in fact, one particular variety of tomatoes haven't germinated. But my cucumbers, I have all the different cucumber varieties. It's kind of weird because this is the first year where I've seen my seeds take seemingly forever to germinate. Some of these seeds have been in their pots now for over a month. They're taking a really long time to grow, but the ones that are growing are in generally good shape. And I've got watermelons as well as cucumbers, so they're all doing well. And I'll have to point it down here. I've finally got one solitary pepper that's coming in. I think some of my other pepper plants are not doing so well. But I do have more cucumbers here. And I have peas for Erin. I put some peas in for Erin and her partner. So they are on their way to Erin this weekend. And everything else is doing really well. Even one of my fuchsias got its first flower of the season. So yay, things are finally starting to grow. But that is not what I want to talk to you about today. I'm going to talk to you today about charging electric cars. But first, I know the real reason why you all watch this show. You want to know how the chickens are doing. So the chickens are still stuck inside because coyotes are still looking for food. They're very ravenous at this time of the year. Luckily, nobody is broody anymore, which is incredibly good news. But it does mean that my chickens are very bored and very fed up. Nobody is broody. We do have someone on the nest at the moment. We've got one egg so far today, so that's not a bad thing. And when it comes to everything else in the garden, we've had such rain this week that I haven't done a whole lot of stuff. My peas and my beans, my fava beans or broad beans are coming up well. I've done some more digging. Don't really have much to show you because there's just nothing coming up there. We've got garlic on this side and onions coming up. But these guys, these are broad beans, fava beans and different types of peas. They're all doing incredibly well. And my potatoes, which are in giant tubs on the other side of the greenhouse, they are also doing incredibly well because they're not being eaten by gophers. We've actually figured out a way of keeping everything safe from gophers, so I'm not going to complain about that. But that is not what we want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about free electric car charging. Specifically, you know, the type where you get free charging. Volta do some where you turn up and you have a thing. Oh, what's this on the ground here? Apparently I have some seeds on the ground that are sealed, so that is good. What seeds are these? Turnips. They should not be on the ground, but they're still sealed, so I might have to put those in the ground later. Charging is a thing obviously that everybody with an EV is familiar with. Either you charge at home or you have to make use of rapid chargers all the time. But there are charging stations that are free. Specifically in the US, the Volta charging stations. You turn up at a mall, there's a giant billboard and there's a free charging station. And the business model of those charging stations is that while you are parked there, there are adverts displayed. So it's an advertising billboard that also happens to have a charging station. So you get free charging because the money that the company earns from advertising to people in the parking lot is far greater than the money they'd earn from actually charging you money to charge your car. Of course, there are other charging stations that are completely free, whether it's a community charging station, whether it's a charging station at a location where the business has opted to give you free electricity, or whether it's some other of free then situation. Now, back in the day, I used to always use those charging stations. If it was free and if it was available, I would always plug in. And the reason I do that is because if you see a charging station being used, you see an electric car using said charging station, it shows that people want to use electric cars. My dog is digging in my beds, not my beds, the vegetable plots. And so the charging station becomes more obvious to passers-by, and people go, oh, what is that? Oh, it's an electric car. Oh, I didn't know electric cars look like this. And so there's definitely a conversation of advocacy that can happen if you're just plugged in at a free charging station. You get free electricity, people get to see it, and everybody's happy. But these days, I've stopped using, for the most part, I've stopped using those type of charging stations unless I genuinely need to charge. And the reason being is there are now enough electric vehicles on the road that very often you'll come across one and there are a couple of people there already, or I'll be there and I'll come back and there'll be somebody looking a bit worried who genuinely needs to charge. And so the question becomes, why should I be getting free electricity from that when I don't need to charge, when somebody else could genuinely need that power because they're on a road trip or they're from out of town and they don't know where the charging stations are? So I've stopped using charging stations in public unless I absolutely need to. Of course, I'm in a different situation. I have 15 kilowatts of solar panels on the roof of my home. If you wonder what that noise is, I'm just kicking a ball for Ghost because he came out with me to film this. So I don't need to charge away from home very often. I have lots of power generated on the roof of my home. I don't pay a huge amount for my electricity. Now, if I'm going to be somewhere for a couple of hours and I know I need to be full for the return trip, I will park and charge. When I go to Portland Airport, PDX, I will plug my car in if there's a free charging station there. But they're level 1 charging stations. They're designed to be used over multiple days. And I'll generally plug my car in there. It's free. It looks good for the airport, again, because there's a definite need for long-term, slow, level 1 charging. But when I go to the airport, it's slightly different because I've usually driven 50 plus miles to get there. It means I don't have to charge my car to 100% the night before I go. Very often I end up having to pick up other team members en route to the airport. So it means that my commute gets a little bit longer than it normally would. And it also means that my car is, it's full when I pick it up. I don't have to worry about, if I need to run some errands on the way home, which I very often have to do, I don't have to worry about it. But generally, if it's local, like within a 20 mile, 30 mile radius, I don't bother plugging in. I would love to know if you do. I suspect many of you do. Even if you don't need the power, you'll still plug in because it's free electricity, right? But I don't want to monopolise the infrastructure for someone who genuinely needs it. And I still think there are a lot of people who genuinely need it. So, do you plug in if it's free? Do you always plug in if it's free? Or do you only plug in if it's free and you need it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Michael and I are out of the office this week. We are on the road again. We're flying over to Los Angeles for a launch event next week for a vehicle, not a car, not a bicycle, but for a different type of electrified vehicle. We'll be making some videos from that. I know we still haven't pushed the Ford F-150 Lightning interview yet with Darren Palmer. That is the reason behind that on the main channel is that we are going to have to replace all of my audio. I'm going to have to basically dub my audio because we had problems that day with the microphone. I did it with the interview for Linda Zhang, and I've just had a crazy busy week and we haven't had a chance to do anything on that yet. But don't worry, it's going to happen. Also, I know some of you were going to say, well, where's the Porsche Taycan? Because you were due to get that this week. Unfortunately, the Porsche Taycan has a cracked windscreen. We found out from the folks we work with, who work with the automakers. They contacted us and said, yeah, we want to drop the Taycan Cross Turismo off, but unfortunately, The previous press person who had it on loan, they suffered a pretty nasty windscreen crack, and it's one of those cracks that if it doesn't get fixed soon, it would be dangerous. And also it doesn't look good for Porsche, right? If they lend a car to someone and it's got a big crack on the windscreen. So they're fixing that this week. The other car that we were due to get on Thursday, we're now getting on Friday. So we will have a car next week on review. So more reviews on the way. The BMW EQS review is just about finished. So head over to the main channel to watch that if you can. And as I'm sure you know, we've been juggling this week to try and figure out what's going to happen with the F-150 Lightning. We've got to go through a huge number of things to try and figure out how that works. We've got an electrical panel upgrade that is in the pipeline, but we need to make sure we can afford that before we say yes to it. That's a review unit that we're getting something to review, but we have to pay for the installation. So we've got to save up pennies for that. So, which brings me in a not insignificant way to say, if you would like to support the channel, do remember that you can go to patreon.com/Transport Evolved, or go over to our main YouTube channel and use the YouTube channel join button, and then you can become a member of Transport Evolved there. The options we've got on the main channel are basically the same as what you find on Patreon, just one cent less, because YouTube has a 99 cent structure as opposed to on the dollar structure, which is what Patreon does. So swings and roundabouts. Several of you have asked which one is the best way of doing that. You know, which one do we get the best money from? I don't know how much YouTube takes because YouTube doesn't tell me, but I know Patreon has been very good to us, and obviously we prefer Patreon. There are currently about $14,000 worth of patrons who have been patrons of the channel over time, whose credit cards have expired. So if you are one of those people, please check your credit card to make sure that if you do want to continue to support the channel, you can. I know a lot of you probably still think you are, but there's the equivalent of I think it was about $14,500 worth of annual support that's currently not coming in because people haven't updated their credit cards. And $14,500 is a lot of money, and it would help us do things like prepare new stories, prepare new challenges, do more collaborations, have some more help at the channel, and also pay me, because I haven't paid myself since November. So any help you can do there would be gratefully received. But this is the point in the channel, in the show even, where I thank those of you who have been really wonderful and supported the channel thus far. So thanks on behalf of the entire crew. Go to the folk on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month supporters. Thank you very much to our $50 a month supporters. They are Chris Maxwell, Bennett Elder, Brian Newton, Dave Kitchen, Michael Goad, Ricky Leon, Andrew Martin, Guido Drahota, Brophy Wolf, Tesla in the Gong, Gordon C, Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Regine Fellows, Rory Litwin, Jim Burness, Chris Ascenter and Denny Hyde. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month supporters. They are Anonymous Freak, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, Joe Bresney, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, Matthew Drobnak, John Lyons, Christopher Lee Jones, Andrew Glenn, Paul Conway, Laura Reynolds, Ellery Hensley, and of course, Ian. As I said earlier, there are links below if you want to support us and become a member of the channel. You can also send us a tip through Ko-fi, or you can buy some cool swag from our swag store. And with that, we will be back on Sunday next week with another Sunday Musing. There's content every day on the main channel, of course, for you all to enjoy. I think Kate is doing the Sunday Musing next week, so that will be a fun one. But until then, thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.